In today's world, the importance of continued education cannot be overstated. While our formal education often ends at a certain time in life, our desire and our capacity to learn should never end. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce you, or introduce back again, because John was here last year, I believe, at this time, John Wimberly, Dr. John Wimberly. He is the head of the Lifelong Learning Program here in San Miguel. Lifelong Learning has been here how many years, John? 13 years, started by Joe Sanders. If you remember Joe left and went back to the States, I believe, and you took over 2 years ago or 3 years ago? Third year here. Thank you for helping on the introduction. This program runs every year from January through March and offers classes by talented group of instructors. Last year, they had a record-breaking 600 students, and by the look of the websites, things are filling up quickly, and I'm sure they're going to surpass the 600 this year. John has been a lifelong advocate for education and global justice. He brings decades of leadership and service to the program. His impressive career involves co-founding the Miriam Kitchen, which was provides essential services for the homeless in Washington, D.C., as well as leading international development projects in Ghana and in Ethiopia. His leadership of the Lifelong Learning Program is a testament to the commitment of education, community, and service to San Miguel. Please join me in welcoming Dr. John Wimberly.
So Dr. Wimberly was my father. I'm John, and I come from a long line of Presbyterian pastors, fourth generation. So I thought what I'd do is the Lifelong Learning Program is a program of the Instituto. Joe Sanders started it, and I thought I'd just give you a little bit of an update of what's going on at the Instituto. The Instituto, of course, those of us who've been around here for a while, think of, there's now two elements to the Instituto. One is the one that Jaime owns, which is the money machine that produces all the weddings, right? And then the other part is the school, which was the original engine to the Instituto. And Rudy Fernandez, Jaime's brother, was the person who was the moving force there. I've been coming to San Miguel since 1984. We finally built a house in 95. And Instituto was a big part of why I came back. I started there with Spanish lessons. Then I actually took ceramics at Bellas Artes, which in those days had a lot of classes for the community, but ended up teaching ceramics at the Instituto. So I've been engaged, and then I became good friends with Rudy, who died not that long ago, it seems to me. It was like yesterday to me, but I kind of became a business consultant to him because the market for the Instituto was changing rapidly. I'm not sure the Instituto always adapted as quickly as it should. What do I mean by market changing? I've got more time than I originally thought I had, so I'm a preacher, so I can fill whatever time I have, right? So, but at any rate, the market was changing. So when I first started going there with my wife, it was mostly the people coming to San Miguel were people, she's a school teacher, I'm a pastor, social workers, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the people who were coming to San Miguel in the summer back in the day. And as the market changed, mainly as this town got more and more affluent, that market kind of disappeared. The new people were not as interested in taking art classes, as an example. And so that whole element of their existence basically dried up. The market just disappeared on them. In the middle of that, though, they still had this school. They had a Bachelor of Arts program, which we still have today. It's connected to the University of Guanajuato, so when the kids get a degree, they get a degree from the University of Guanajuato, a Bachelor of Arts. I'm excited to say that the program is fully enrolled. The max the program can hold is 60. They've got 60 kids there. Jesus Ibarra, who many of you know, is the dean and just doing an incredible job. They faced a similar problem in that it used to be kids came from all over Mexico to take classes there, but they could no longer afford to come from all over Mexico because the price of housing went up so steeply here in San Miguel. So Jesus had he and Rudy together had the idea of, well, let's just focus on the kids in San Miguel. And so now most of those 60 kids are kids from San Miguel who can live at home. And so the housing issue is taken off the table in terms of an obstacle to what's going on. And because I'm friends of Rudy, but also just because I admired what he did, I think, I've heard people criticize the Institute over the years here. This is a town where people like to criticize stuff, right? Just read the civil list. But I just would like to say that as somebody who was acting kind of like a business consultant for him, I'd always give him three options. And the last option was Rudy sell, and you can have tens of millions of dollars and live happily ever. He always rejected that option. I said this at his funeral, and I'm saying it again today. He always rejected. He said, "No, my family started this as an educational institution, and it's going to remain an educational institution until the day I die." And it did, and it has. Now, so who's in charge now? The Instituto itself, all the property, buildings, et cetera, is owned by his two daughters, Zara and Eva. Eva lives in the Yucatan, is a tremendous business entrepreneur. I think one day she'll be moving back here in regards to the Instituto. Zara is equally creative. They're both women, I don't know, in their late 30s, I would say, mid 30s, I don't know. But they're young and they're creative. They understand what one needs to do to make an institution grow and prosper in the 21st century. So I think the best days of the Instituto may very well be ahead of it because they've got it. Now there's a third key person in there who is Rudy's widow, Margarita, and she is part of the school itself is run by a board, and she's a key player on the board that runs the school. So you can really think of a trio of women, Eva, Zara, and Margarita, who are in charge. So that's what's going on there, and they are looking. They've got some architects they're working with about making the place more accessible and doing a lot of things, because anybody who's been there knows getting up all these stairs and everything is a bit of a barrier, and that's actually a bit of a barrier for our program. So that's kind of what's going on. The one thing, thanks for that list. I could just hire you to do a promo for our program. That continuing education thing that you started with it was great. The one thing they didn't mention that I was a little surprised was the connection between mental health and continuing education. I mean, there's a lot of research on this. People who continue to educate themselves are much more likely not only to live longer, but to have their cognitive abilities much longer. So that's another good reason, and I really see that in our students. Our student body are mostly, I'm 77, they're mostly people, my age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, but it's a bunch of gray-haired people for the most part, and they are vital people, and our teachers are vital and vibrant people as well. And I'm convinced it's because of that connection between staying engaged with the world and continuing to grow. The As Ron said, we had 600 students last year, which was a record. We were very excited about that. We've already got 670 registrations for this year, and it's January. So we're definitely, I think, going to go over 700 easily. The classroom itself is if you've never been there, it's a nice space. It's a little tight, but we get 55 people in there comfortably. One of the first things I did was ask them to buy new equipment for AV. So our projector is state of the art. We have a lot of classes where people are projecting art, and so you really need to get the good images to have a good projection system. We just had Martin Fletcher just did a thing, and he was showing a lot of videos from his career. So you need to have the right kind of equipment to do those kinds of classes. We have that. We have a good sound system. I mean, whenever, as a pastor for 40 years, I can tell you, no, there's always somebody who can't hear. But, that's just life in the Big Ten, as we used to say in Wisconsin. But we got a good audio system, and people can hear. One of the things I want to do is similar to what you're doing for next year, is I want to get a camera installed on the wall so that we can have a live, for those people who can't get to a class, because we've had a bunch of our classes are already sold out and more will be sold out. So we've had people say, well, can I see it live? And I have to say no, but it's so easy to do what you're doing here and get it out. So I'm hoping that we'll have that taken care of next year. Because we've got these numbers we've got, I'm a fiscal conservative, so I always want to see spreadsheets, financial spreadsheets and stuff. So one of the things I first did was ask, how much money is coming in? None of us get salaries. There's no salaries involved. The teachers don't have salaries. People working don't, to organize it like me don't have salaries. And so I just was going, there must be some excess revenue here. And indeed, and there is excess revenue, which is getting larger as our program gets larger. I mean, our fees are cheap; they're like 350 to 400 pesos, but there's still revenue there. So I had a meeting with Margarita and Eva and Jesus and Zara last year, and I asked for the spreadsheets. I got the spreadsheets, and last year I think our excess was about 5,000, something like that. And so I said that what we're going to do, and we are doing now, is the excess will go to fund scholarships for the kids who are in the BA program. So that some of the kids, artists out there, young artists who couldn't even pay the minimal tuition that the Institute charges, we'll have scholarships for them. So if you're wondering where the money's going, because I did, it's going to go, any excess is going to go there. Occasionally we have to do some equipment upgrades or stuff, but the expenses are marginal. One of the things my job as the team leader is, first of all, to make sure our team functions as a team, not having everybody siloed. And the other thing that is my primary responsibility is trying to find teachers and work with people who want to teach. And one of the things when I was in ministry, other clergy would say to me, where do you come up with these good ideas like the Miriam's Kitchen, the feeding program? I said, I answer the door, I answer my phone, I read my email. I don't come up with the ideas come to me. And it's similar with what's happening with the teachers. Teachers are coming to me, and they just say, I've got this, I could do this, I could do that, and we talk. Sometimes at the end of it, they go, and I have to be paid, and I go, well, then you can't teach. And they're fine with that, I'm fine with that. So we're trying to diversify the types of course offerings we have, and we've got. If you've seen the website this year, and I urge you to do it, maybe Ron, I can send you a link that you could put. Okay, all right. Okay, thank you for that. So about half of our students wouldn't know what that QR code does, but that's another story for another time. But so we've got a really diverse group of types of courses, and I just wanted to mention a few of them as to what we've got. Phil Silver is actually a teacher who's taught in the past. Phil is like a superstar. He's in the Hall of Fame, Canadian Hall of Fame for theater. And he was one of the leading costume and set designers in Canada and occasionally on Broadway. And he's going to teach two courses for us. The first one is on Figaro, which is being put on here in San Miguel. So it becomes kind of a prep for anybody who's going to go see that opera. You can go hear Phil talk about that opera because he's been involved in putting that on many times. And the other one is a repeat of a course that I've been told over and over again I started with Joe Sanders, and then students have told me that is the best course they ever offered. And it's called Seeing Theater. I saw just parts of that course when he did it a couple of years ago, and it is spectacular. And what he does is he shows you how they design sets and costumes to make points that the director wants to make in the production itself. So lighting will have an effect on where you as a viewer of theater, where your eyes go, those kinds of things, darkening here, highlighting here, types of costumes. I mean, just all this stuff. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. I don't think that one is sold out yet, but if it's not, it will be soon. Jesus, you got a small presentation, I think, on his book, which is really the definitive book on the history of San Miguel. He taught this course last year, and it sold out like that. So we're just offering it again. It's already sold out like that again. So maybe next year again. But there's a big demand for it because we live here or we visit here, and we want to know about our community, right? So that course is going to be a good one. One of the people who came to me last year, she was taking a course, is a young woman named Natalie Rivera from New York City. She's involved in the art world in Manhattan. And I asked her, could you teach something? And she said, well, I don't know what I would teach. And so we started to talk. We had over for Kamita. And so she's going to teach what I think is going to be an amazing course. It's on basically disappearing folk craft. I mean, so I remember back because I was doing a lot of ceramics. I remember hearing stories back during the wars in El Salvador and Guatemala that when a village would be wiped out, an entire folk craft would be wiped out. Because each one of those villages in Guatemala, as an example, they were doing certain kinds of weaving and textile stuff that had been done for probably thousands of years in that location. And then it just ended because all the people were killed or all the people had to leave and the town was destroyed. And that's been happening around the world. And the other part of that that contributes to it is the role of the internet, which is if the only thing you know is the folk craft you've got, you're going to do the folk craft, the folk art you know, and in your community. But if you can see stuff on the internet, you go, well, I don't want to do the stuff my mom did. I want to do the stuff that I see on the internet. So there's a lot of different forces kind of working together that are having an impact on folk art. And she's going to do this class called the Revitalization of Endangered Artisanal Skills. And I think that she's a very dynamic young woman. I think she's going to really do a great job for us. Natalie Taylor, who some of you may know, is going to do a course on the history of art in San Miguel. Originally, she wanted to do a class, and if my memory is correct on our conversation, she really wanted that to be a class where we moved around the city to look at things like this, as an example. But I said, I really can't do that because I'm committed to things being accessible. And you would just eliminate a whole bunch of people if you say you're going to walk from the Instituto up to Bellas Artes to Parroquia over here, et cetera, et cetera. So she's got photographs of all this stuff. So she's going to be showing photographs from all of the places I mentioned and many more. To basically take us from the 17th century up to the present in terms of art stuff that's been done. And it is, I mean, even though I've been here 40 years, I still walk by stuff and see stuff that I'm going, oh, I don't remember that. But it's been there for 100 years, So I think as anybody who's a San Miguel resident or regular visitor, that's going to be a good one. Like the one you just announced, we had a course on the water crisis last year, and I asked Dylan from Caminos de Agua to come and do an update. That's not a course, that's a free course. You'll just come, he'll do a 2-hour presentation. Our classes are from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. He and his staff will do an update on what's going on from last year. And we all know that whatever that update's going to be, there's going to be a lot of change from last year because the water situation in this town, just like the climate situation. I mean, I love this warm weather, but it did not used to be like this in January in San Miguel. I mean, it was a lot colder than what it's been recently. A woman, one of our team members, was sitting across the table drinking margaritas with some group of people, and she started talking to this woman who she didn't know. Well, it turns out she's really an absolute top tier professor of musical history. And she's going to do an overview of Western music, um, which sounds like a big topic. It is a big topic, but people like that can do it. We're going to have a field trip to the Galleria out in Atotonilco. That should be a great experience. We haven't lined up the transportation yet, but we'll get that up on the course itself is up there, but we've got to get the transportation up there with the cost of that for those who need it. And then the final course I was going to mention is Seven Wonders of the World. This woman has a PhD in archaeology from the University of Pennsylvania. She's been teaching, her entire life, and I mean, the name of the course speaks for itself. But I think that should be to have an archaeologist with that skill set doing it instead of, Viking tours doing it. I think there'll be some depth. Not to knock Viking tours. I love what they bring to PBS, but I think that'll be really a great course. And then the last things I want to say is our classes are a bargain. I mean, at $15 to $20 for 2 to 3 sessions, that's what they are, 2 to 3 sessions, is a bargain by anybody's imagination. And the last thing I wanted to do was to ask you if you are somebody who's got an expertise and can teach. The two do not necessarily go together. As we've all had professors like that, right? They're the world expert, but they can't teach. If you can both would like to teach and have an expertise, or even better, if you have a friend, and I take anonymous emails, you will not get blamed for telling me who your friend is. I will just give me an email and I will contact them. I have no shame when it comes to that kind of stuff. We need courses for next year. And so I welcome any and all suggestions or offers that any of you might want to make. So that's what I've got. I don't know how I'm doing on time here. We got some time. But yeah, you're looking for the other mic. Here we go.
Thank you. Do we have any question? We have a question.
First, I want to say thank you. I've known of this and known Joe and all of that for 13 years, but this is the first year I signed up, and I signed up for multiple things. I was there with Martin Fletcher and Travis the other day. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Secondly, I want to say that your presentation and the presentation by Jesus are some of the best we've had. I truly believe that. That's from my heart as a presenter.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that, Jesus has this fabulous book. And I'm eager for that fabulous book to come out in English.
Yeah.
And I know he's working on it, but I was thinking, golly, I don't want to take any opportunity away from a kid, but if you're tit for tat, if your give back to the Instituto were to help get that book into English, then I know a lot of us would be buying it and would be profiting the Instituto, which can further your programs.
Yo también. So the problem, I think, is getting the funding together to publish it. And last year he told me he thought by this time it would be published. So I haven't had a chance to talk to him specifically about that, but I have a feeling that's the issue, and I am going to have a conversation with him. And if I find out that the money is the issue, I'm going to urge him, and if he won't do it, I'll do it, to make that need public. Because I think there are a lot of us who would be glad to toss in, $100, $1,000, whatever, and make it happen. Because it is just too major of a resource not to have done in English. So thank you for that.
Could you speak a little bit more about the BA program?
One of the last things Rudy did in his life was build an entire new set of classrooms for the BA program. It's an art program, obviously, and they've got great teachers down there who are significantly underpaid, in my opinion. And I don't know what else you might want to know. They get a full-blown diploma at the University of Guanajuato, which is a major university in Mexico. Oh no, it's a significant degree. And they've, they're starting to, they weren't doing a good job of this, but they're starting to do a good job of tracking where these kids go, because you need to do that, because you need to say, like when our son became an artist, we went, you'll never have a job, So I mean, that's what parents say to their artist kids, right? And of course he did. He went out and he made a lot of money as a professional photographer. But we need to be able to say to younger kids who are thinking about going to school at an art school, this is where your job opportunities are. And there are actually a lot of them, in some ways more of them now than there were when our son graduated from School of Visual Arts in New York City. Yeah. How you doing?
Right.
Good.
Is Jerry Bledsoe going to be teaching this semester? Of course, he's done it for years on different aspects of the history of Mexico. What is the situation on courses like that?
Right. So Jerry is teaching, and he and I had a number of conversations about because he's, as you know, he's got a lot of different things he can teach on. He's doing a course on, it's basically built on that, I can't think of the name of the book, but it was about friendly neighbors. It was a book back in the 80s or 90s and talked about first of all, it talks about two Mexicos, one north of Mexico City and one south of Mexico City in terms of poverty and that kind of stuff. But it also talks about the relationship between the United States and Mexico. And so, I mean, we had no idea at the time, how the election was going to come out, but obviously that topic now is more important than ever. I just looked at my phone and the peso's at 20.6 right now based on, what President Trump said about tariffs. I assume that's why it jumped almost a point. So yeah, so he's offering a course. I think it's in February. It's on the website. That's not fully subscribed, but it's getting there. So if anybody wants to get into that course, I would recommend you sign up for that.
I just want to mention that one of the most important books that I read when I first got here back in '97 was a book called Distant Neighbors.
That's it. That's
Alan Ritting, who
Yeah.
happened to be from Brazil.
Uh-huh.
And the truth is, many Mexican, it was so deep, especially the first chapter, I read it several times, that many Mexicans did not like it.
Right.
I mean, and he left the country, but it was a very powerful book. Of course, a lot of the aspects of the book are dated now, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
very, very important, especially now with the new.
Right. So Distant Neighbors is the one. I couldn't remember the name of it. I knew Neighbors. I couldn't get the distant. So yeah, and that's going to be at the core of his course. And it also builds. Last year we were able to bring in a woman from Penn State who's a professor and one of the leading experts on the U.S.-Mexico War. And so that was a good, we're trying to do some building block stuff too here so that you would start with 101 and then go to 102 and 103. I think Jerry's class is a good follow-up to what people learned last year in that particular class. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, John.
Nice coffee mugs.
Thank you.
Just coffee, tea, scotch, whatever you want.
These are the best coffee mugs in Mexico. I've got one from last year. I'm looking for a set.
And then he's going to put them on eBay. Thank you very much, John.